Greetings and welcome to today's lesson on atomic theory. So we're going to look at the development of our understanding of what an atom looks like. And so today you are going to learn about the atom, and you will be able to identify individuals who contributed to the atomic theory. You'll be able to match experiments with the contributions, so what do they find for understanding of an atom, and you'll be able to describe the current model of an atom following this. And so to begin, long time ago, like 400 years before Jesus walked the earth, there was a fellow named Democritus who was a Greek philosopher, and he had this idea that the things that we saw were made of these tiny particles that he called atomos, which were atoms. And he believed that these things were super tiny, so if you took some sort of substance and you pounded it down and pulverize it till you couldn't pulverize it anymore, that would be your atoms. He believed they were indivisible, they were tiny, they were as small as you could get, but he didn't have any reasoning or rationale or experiments to show kind of his thoughts. He just said, I think that these are really tiny and that they're there. One of the guys that disagreed with him is a guy that you are familiar with. His name's Aristotle. So Aristotle thought otherwise. I'm not exactly sure what Aristotle thought, but he wasn't right either. But he argued, and that's why you don't hear about this guy named Democritus. Fast forward 2,000 years, 2,000 plus years. A fellow by the name of John Dalton, he did experiments to verify that, hey, maybe there are these little things that all this stuff we know, all this matter is made of. And so he believed, his idea was that atoms were these tiny indivisible spheres. And so it was a solid sphere, kind of like a bowling ball. And that he had some different ideas with his theory. So one of them was that all atoms of the same element are exactly the same. Atoms of different elements are completely different. Atoms can recombine to make new substances, things like that. So he had some explanation behind his thoughts, unlike Democritus 2,000 years prior. But this is John Dalton. 1800s is when we first start our current understanding of an atom. So just over 200 years ago, not that long ago in the grand scheme of things. Fast forward 100 years, a guy by the name of J.J. Thomson comes along, and he does his own experiments, and what he does is he fires particles through, I lied. He fires, they're called cathode ray tubes, which way back when, they used to have box TVs that had these things in them that showed your picture. And he discovered that he could bend the light that shined through by putting magnets up there. And so he found these negatively charged particles within an atom. And so he discovered essentially the electron. So he believed that this atom was a solid sphere, or a sphere, I guess, kind of like of jelly or pudding, that had these different little pieces in it that were negative. And so they called his the plum pudding model. He's from Europe, so that's what they eat over there. We would call it the chocolate chip cookie model. Same kind of idea, that you have a solid or a positive substance, such as your cookie dough, with negative spread throughout, which is your chocolate chips. But he called his the plum pudding model. So this is what it looked like, that he had a ball of positive charge with these negatives spread throughout it. Only about 10 years later, less than 10 years later, another guy came along. His name is Ernest Rutherford. And he proposed that instead of having this ball of positive charge, he said there's something there that is very small and very dense and very positive. And what he did an experiment where he fired particles at a very thin piece of gold foil. And what he found was that some of those pieces actually, so here's gold foil inside of a collection device, and he fired these particles at it. What he expected were these particles to go through, and most of them did. He had a lot of things that hit back here, but then he had a couple that showed up over here. And this didn't make any sense to him. He compared it to firing a bullet at a napkin and having it come back at you. So he found the nucleus, which is a small, dense positive charge in the center of an atom. He found the nucleus. A couple years later, they discovered that electrons actually go in kind of shells or rings or orbitals. And so we've now got different shells of electrons around the atom. So the first shell holds 2 electrons, the second one holds 8. The third shell actually holds 18 electrons. And then the fourth holds 32. But that's where we're at in 1913. And currently we have our nucleus in the center with our electron cloud, which is a region where electrons are most likely to be found. So it's an area where electrons are most likely to be found is our current understanding of an atom. I would like you to name 3 individuals credited with contributing to our understanding of the atom. I want to know what was their contribution. If you can remember the experiment, that'd be fantastic. But what did they contribute? What did they find? What did they discover? How did they advance our understanding? If you can do that, you'll be right on track, and I will catch up with you when you return to class. Thank you for working through this, and I look forward to seeing you next time.